All right. Try and do my best Matthew McConaughey from Dazed and Confused there. All right, man, we have arrived, ladies and gentlemen, at the NFL draft. It is draft day. Welcome to the call sheet. I'm your host, Kevin Smith, and on today's program, we are going to talk about why the NFL draft is America's ultimate reality show. It is a fascinating moment to see these young men achieve lifelong dreams, but it is also the culmination of an incredibly arduous process that plays out in real time. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know what types of drama will arise. We don't know whose dreams will be realized, whose hearts will be broken, whether it's the players, the teams, the fan bases, the amount of time and energy expended on all things NFL draft over the past several months has been unbelievable. And it now plays out beginning tonight in what has to be considered the greatest predominantly male soap opera on the American landscape. When my wife and I first got together, when we were dating, one of our guilty pleasures, especially after long days at work during football season, when we were tired and we'd come home, we didn't have kids yet, you'd eat dinner and it'd be 8 o'clock at night and you'd finally have a chance to sit down and you wanted something totally and utterly mindless after 12, 13-hour days where you're making decisions all day long. We wanted to just sort of veg out on the couch. And we would watch The Real Housewives of New Jersey. And I live in New Jersey. I've known those people my whole life. And it would be so utterly stupid, but also on a very, very base level, entertaining as hell. And I would imagine that for some people, the NFL draft is the football sort of testosterone-laden equivalent. But it's so much more than that. If you think back to the Greeks, who were the architects of so many things that have just become common elements in Western society, they were really the first ones to understand the value and fiction of tragedy and comedy. And while the NFL draft doesn't exactly incorporate those elements specifically, when you roll tragedy and comedy together, you get drama. And that, more than anything else, is what the NFL draft produces for us. And that drama can take many forms. The intrigue of who's going to be selected, of course, is what I think makes the draft so compelling. But within that, there are these mini dramas. For example, there are always, it seems, some big trades that rock the order of things. It looks like the draft is going to go a certain way, and then there's a big trade, and now everything gets shaken up. And now teams that thought maybe they were going to do A can't do A because this team just traded in front of them. And they're going to do A, so now you got to go to plan B. There's crazy trades. I'll never forget Mike Ditka, coach and general manager of the New Orleans Saints in 1999, trading his entire draft to move up to select Texas running back Ricky Williams. And then he lit up a cigar after the trade was over, and he said, I'm going to go play golf. Well, everybody else then had, and that was like the 12th overall pick. So everybody else had 95, 98% of the draft still to sweat through. And Ditka traded away all his dudes, drafted Ricky Williams, lit up a cigar, and headed to the golf course. Ultimately, that didn't work out great for Mike Ditka and the Saints. More recently, the Panthers, just a couple years ago, traded a massive haul to the Chicago Bears for the right to move up to number 1 overall and select Bryce Young. The jury's still out on that one. Bryce Young had a bad rookie year, but rebounded so that by the end of last season, his second year, he's playing some decent football. So there's still hope that he could turn into the franchise guy that the Panthers hoped that they'd be getting. A little further down the draft order, sometimes there's these trades that maybe not, they don't seem like that big a deal at the time, but now in retrospect, with the gift of hindsight, you look at it and you go, wow, that's a brilliant trade. Like for 2018, the Baltimore Ravens had already made their first round selection, but with the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock, with the very, very last pick of the first round, the Eagles had just won the Super Bowl in 2017. So they've got the 32nd pick in the first round. The Ravens trade the Eagles 2 second-round picks to jump back up into the first round. And with that 32nd pick, they select Lamar Jackson, quarterback out of Louisville. And there was a lot of people who just didn't think Lamar Jackson's game was going to translate to the NFL. He was a quote-unquote running quarterback, but he wasn't going to be able to play from the pocket, and he was going to get beat up, etc. Well, obviously, we now know that that has worked out fabulously for the Baltimore Ravens. If you're a fan, if you're a rabid fan like me, and you live and die with the draft, I mean, I watch every second I can. But sometimes you've got extenuating circumstances. And I'll never forget the 2006 draft. Back in 2006, they had not yet gone to prime time. So it started at noon on a Saturday. And I had been in North Jersey a couple hours from my home for a wedding. It was a Friday night wedding. And Friday night's the wedding. And then Saturday you get up and you're, kicking around, whatever, hanging out with some people. But the Steelers had won the Super Bowl. And they were picking 32nd. They'd won the Super Bowl in 2005 season. So now they're picking 32nd. So I knew that the 32nd pick wouldn't happen until around 4 in the afternoon. And so at around 2-ish or so, I knew I had a couple hour drive ahead of me. I headed out and started driving home. And I'm listening on the radio, ESPN radio, as I'm driving. And I was probably half an hour from my house. And they were at the 25th pick, 15 minutes between picks. I got plenty of time to get home for the Steelers. And all of a sudden they announce a trade. The Pittsburgh Steelers have traded with the New York Giants for the 25th overall pick, and the Steelers are now on the clock. And as they announced that on the radio, I was like a mile from a rest stop off of the Parkway. And I sped into the rest stop. I knew it. I'd been at that rest stop many times, and I knew that there was a Dunkin' Donuts in there, and next to the Dunkin' Donuts, there was a little lounge area where they had a bunch of TVs. And I was like, maybe they're showing the draft on the TV. I ripped into that rest stop, literally sprinted into inside and ran over to where that Dunkin' Donuts area was. And sure enough, they had the draft on, and I just got there as the commissioner was walking to the podium. I think it was Paul Tagliabue at the time. And he said the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the 25th pick in the 2006 draft, select Santonio Holmes, wide receiver, Ohio State. And I didn't say anything, but from behind me, I heard this guy go, yeah. And I turned around, and here was this dude in a Steelers hoodie. And I high-fived the guy, and then I walked out and got back in my car. It's stuff like that, man, that, this galvanizes us as fans. So you're going to get some crazy trades. You're going to get some drama, right? Guys are going to free fall. Everybody remembers the Aaron Rodgers story. Aaron Rodgers, who thought he could be going number 1 overall. He's a California kid. He goes to the University of California up in the Bay Area, and the San Francisco 49ers have the number 1 overall pick in that draft, 2005, and they need a quarterback. And it looks like they're going to take Aaron Rodgers. And he's in the green room and he's ready to go. My hometown team, the team I rooted for growing up, they're going to pick me number 1 overall. And then they didn't. They took Alex Smith out of Utah. And that began an epic free fall for Aaron Rodgers, which saw him sit for over 4 hours, excruciatingly, in that green room as it emptied out of all the people who had been there getting picked ahead of him. And eventually it's just Aaron Rodgers. And the cameras would not leave him alone. They're just hanging on him until with the 24th overall pick, he's selected by the Green Bay Packers. And he vowed to go wreck the league. And he pretty much did. You're going to get free fall. Randy Moss back in the 1998 draft was arguably the number one talent in that draft. I mean, athletically, as a football player, he's the top pick. But in the run up to the draft, in the days preceding the draft, suddenly these stories begin to emerge about his character and his attitude, and he's not a hard worker, and he doesn't love football. And suddenly Randy Moss is in free fall, and he makes it all the way down to pick number 21, where the Vikings take him. I think people remember the Laramie Tunsil gas mask bong photograph that surfaced like literally the day before the draft, which I can't remember the exact details, but it was like leaked by, I don't remember, like his ex-girlfriend's dad or something weird like that. I don't remember how it played out exactly. But he was projected to be the number one overall pick, and he slides not as far as those other guys, but down to number 13. There are going to be guys who slide, and it's going to be dramatic when they do. Then, of course, there will be these surprises, the picks that shock people, like where you're like, nobody saw that coming. Who saw that coming? I think back to 2017, Mitchell Trubisky going number 2 overall to the Bears out of UNC. Now, people thought he was a first-round quarterback, but they definitely did not think he would be taken number 2 overall. That had people going like, whoa, Mitchell Trubisky up there at number 2. If you go back further, the Lions, back when the Lions were the Lions that most people remember them being, inept, beyond inept, just kind of sad, right? They were so bad that you couldn't even insult them because it felt like picking on a defenseless person. 2003, 2004, 2005, 3 years in a row, they have picks in the top 10. And in each year, they take a wide receiver. And in that 2005 draft, they desperately needed help on defense. And they took Mike Williams as the third straight receiver that they had selected. And there were guys in the organization who were adamantly opposed to it. And head coach Steve Mariucci, who had wanted defensive help. He wanted to draft DeMarcus Ware, who would go on to be, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He wanted DeMarcus Ware, but he got overruled by the ownership group. And then Mariucci had to go out publicly and defend it. He had to argue publicly in favor of selecting a wide receiver for the third straight year, and he could barely do it. I remember watching that interview and thinking to myself, oh my God, Steve Mariucci hates this pick. 2006 draft, the next year. Huge intrigue over who would be the number one pick and a lot of debate. The Houston Texans have the number one pick. They need a quarterback. Is it going to be Vince Young, the Heisman Trophy winner who just won the national championship with Texas? Actually, he wasn't the Heisman Trophy winner. He had just won the national championship with Texas. Or is it going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, Reggie Bush out of USC? And the Texans shocked people by taking Mario Williams, defensive end, spurning Bush and Young. So there will be surprises, and those surprises will get everybody all riled up. And then, of course, there's the intrigue of your team. Who's your team going to take? And I think this is the best part, because you get to see fans kind of divide up into 3 different camps. I think there's 3 camps for fans in the NFL draft. There's the trust your team camp. Hey, no, trust these guys. These guys are pros. They know better than us. They know better. These guys have worked in football forever. No, trust the team. A lot of Steelers fans like that. A lot of in Mike Tomlin, in the Rooneys, in the brand we trust. And then you have the opposite end of the spectrum. This team sucks. Everybody in this organization sucks. They should all be fired. It doesn't matter who we pick. He's going to suck. Eagles fans were like that for a long time, until they finally got the Super Bowl monkey off their back in 2017. Talk to Eagles fans today. Howie Roseman's a genius. They love Howie. But my God, man, you go back to prior Eagles GMs before the Super Bowl era, and it was just a parade of morons. It's a clown show. I remember in 2016, they took a defensive end out of Louisville named Marcus Smith with the number 1 pick. Marcus Smith was such a dark horse to be a number 1 pick that the guys on ESPN didn't even have a package of highlights ready for him to play when they picked him, because most people thought he was going to be a 3rd round pick. And I remember going into school on Monday and sitting down at the lunch table with all my buddies, all of whom were Eagles fans. It was a bloodletting. This franchise sucks. They went on and on and on and on and on. And the next year they won the Super Bowl, and everything's been, and they won it again this past year. So it's all well and good in Eagle Nation now. I think you have a third group of fans, the voice of reason fans. They're probably the minority, right? It's probably a big debate between the, trust the process fans and the process sucks fans. But the voice of reason fans are always the ones that go, well, let's wait and see. I think I'm like that. I hate the draft grade articles that come out the day after the draft, where you give a dude a dude who's hasn't even been to an OTA practice yet, and you just gave him a D. I got a D. I love that stuff. So I'm kind of the voice of reason guy, I guess. But the intrigue, yes, of who your team is going to take. That is fascinating. So what intrigue do we have in store tonight? I don't know, right? That's the great thing. We don't know. That's why it's such a great reality show. I think we can suspect that there will be intrigue around certain players or teams or individuals. I think Shedeur Sanders, it starts with him. Because he could be in that Aaron Rodgers boat. I mean, there's a chance the Browns will take him at number 2. I don't think they will, but there's a chance. But if they don't take him, man, he could slide all the way down to the 20s. He could be there when the Steelers pick at 21. He could even be there when the Rams pick at 26. Shedeur Sanders will be a compelling figure tonight. Travis Hunter will be a compelling figure. Sanders' teammate. Where will he go? I think Cleveland's taking him at number 2. If I had to bet money on the first 2 picks, it's Cam Ward to Tennessee and Travis Hunter to Cleveland. That's my bet. But is he going to be a two-way guy? They're going to let him play both sides of the ball? I mean, that'll be a TBD issue, but the intrigue of where he goes and what they allow him to do, I think is great. I think big picture, how much value is there in the quarterbacks? Last year, we had 6 quarterbacks taken with the first 12 picks. This year, there are people saying that there's only one slam dunk QB in this draft, Ward. That Sanders will probably go somewhere in the first round. But will guys like Jackson Dart or even Jalen Milroe, who is actually attending the draft, Jalen Milroe, are we going to have an Aaron Rodgers situation with him where he sits in the green room for the entire first round? Because he's not really a guy with a first round grade. But you may see teams in the 20s either coming from the second round trading up or on their own, like a team like the Rams, who see Matthew Stafford near the end of his career and say, oh, we got to get a quarterback. Maybe they'll take a flyer on Jackson Dart. Quarterback intrigue. And ultimately, there'll be trades. There will be trades. They may be minor. Like the Titans are taking Cam Ward at number 1. Will they look to move Will Levis? Maybe they'll trade Will Levis to a quarterback needy team to try to pick up a little extra draft capital at the back of the draft. Or will they be blockbusters? You do get the blockbuster trade every once in a while. Mike Ditka trading his entire draft for Ricky Williams. Steelers fans, is there a chance? Is there a chance? The Steelers don't have a second round pick. They have lots of areas where they need to reinforce on their roster. They could really use a second round pick. Could they trade a star? Could they trade TJ Watt to the Eagles for Philly's 32nd pick overall and some other assets? They won't. That will avoid the process of having to sign him to a long, massive contract extension. Could they do it? Could they trade Minkah Fitzpatrick? I don't think either is going to happen, but I'm just saying that's the kind of stuff too that makes the draft fascinating. So, whoever you root for, whatever your interest is, good luck tonight and through the weekend as the draft continues. I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be fascinating, and I'm here for it. So tomorrow I'm going to have a bit of a roundtable panel discussion, a bunch of guests on. We're going to talk about a lot of what transpires. So join me for that. That will be interesting. Until then, get your popcorn ready. America's greatest reality show kicks off soon. Have a great night.